So when I started, we had primarily Cessnas, and we had a Cessna 206, which is what and a turbocharged a T206, which could fly very high, but at that time they didn't have cameras on them. So if you're going to be really high, you're not going to see that much. Even with binoculars, you're not going to see that well. So generally, for the flight officer, for those types of missions, you were low level, unless it was a surveillance, and you're going to be higher, and it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder job to do. So we would fly about 1,000 feet. We had a Cessna 182 also, which was a great airplane. That was a great to work in. That was a great airplane because it was nice and simple. It was reliable. It couldn't fly as high as a 206, but we didn't need to be up at 20,000 feet with that. Mm-hmm. They're in the process, or they've been in the process of replacing those planes with a plane called a GA8, which is actually an Australian airplane that they don't make anymore. So I think they're finding something else to get now. But that plane had a camera. They actually built a specific equipment, a camera that would deploy out of the bottom of the plane. And so that plane we'd fly up at like between 4,000 to 6,000 feet. And it had a very powerful camera. And in this case, the flight officer, instead of sitting right next to the pilot, would sit in back at a big workstation and work back there. And that was ended up being a very different way of doing things, very good way to do it. And what we would do, and this will segue into with the helicopters, is that if we get an incident, you're talking about interesting incidents. If we would get an incident, say a pursuit, we would actually launch the helicopter and the airplane both to go after the pursuit. Helicopter would be low at maybe 500-700 feet, and the airplane would go up to about 4,500 feet, and we could cover the same incident at two different levels, with two different ways. And with the camera, you can record the entire incident.
Interesting.
For later use in court.
So the Australian airplane, what was that again?
It's Gips Aero. It was a company based in Australia, built in Australia, and they built them for maybe 10 years or so, and the company has gone out of business.
Gotcha. And if I'm not mistaken, that is the last aircraft you flew for the department. Is that correct?
Yeah. The last plane I flew was that Gips Aero.
Yeah,
it's called a GA8.